The parents of 2 boys with an intellectual disability say they can move on with their lives after reaching a settlement with a Sydney IVF clinic. Like East Bura sued Australian IVF provider GE, formerly known as Sydney IVF, after failing identify she was a carrier of the Fragile X syndrome. The ABC reported Mrs. Eastbure and her husband Philip reached a settlement on Monday evening with GE, saying they were ecstatic. "It just means now we can get on with looking after our boys and knowing we've got some financial security for the years to come," Mr. Eastbure said. Fragile X is a genetic syndrome causing intellectual disabilities and behavioral challenges. Before she had her 2 sons, like Eastbure was told she was the carrier for Fragile X syndrome, a genetic condition that her boys will now live with for the rest of their lives. It was until her oldest son Hayden was a toddler that Ms. Eastbure learned that she was in fact a carrier, and both her boys were affected by the condition which causes intellectual disability. "I was devastated, absolutely devastated. It was something I had a test for. You base all your family planning and everything off that test," she told reporters on Monday in Sydney. The Eastbure's barrister Jay Anderson said GE provided an inappropriate chromosome test. It should have performed a molecular DNA test, which at that time was considered the only reliable test for determining carrier status for Fragile X, Mr. Anderson told the New South Wales Supreme Court. But GE's barrister David Lloyd argued the company performed the test as requested, and Rajor Katotit, the general practitioner who initially referred Ms. Eastbure for testing, had a duty to check the correct one was performed. "This case starts and finishes with the GP," Mr. Lloyd said. The court heard Ms. Eastbure went to Dr. Katotti about testing because her uncle had Fragile X syndrome and she knew she was at risk of being a carrier. Mr. Anderson said the GP referred Ms. Eastbure to Macquarie Pathology, writing genetic testing for carrier status of X factor, and uncle has X factor mental retardation. Macquarie, which has since been deregistered, took Ms. Eastbure's blood sample and passed it on to GE with a request for testing and a copy of the GPS referral. The court heard that the results, which came back to Dr. Katotti, read no abnormalities detected, Fragile X negative. Mr. Anderson said a staff member at the GP clinic informed Ms. Eastbure she'd received a negative result, and she went on to get married and have Hayden and Jacob, who are now aged 9 and 6. Dr. Katotti's barrister, Richard Weinstein SE, argued the GP asked the right question and got the answer to a different one because the incorrect test was done. The Eastbures told reporters on Monday they probably would have tried to conceive if they knew Ms. Eastbure was a carrier. "It's very hard to say in hindsight because we've got 2 boys that we love. But obviously like he went for testing at the time for a reason," Mr. Eastbure said outside court. AAP.